All right, welcome back to the Cognitive Functions Teaching Part 2. All right, so this is the last session. We're only doing 2 sessions this time. How many of you were not here this morning? All right, so for those people, I'm going to start all over again. Oh, you think that's funny, don't you? All right. So what I am going to do is I'm going to briefly review so that you guys can hopefully be less confused. Okay, less confused. All right, so I'm going to go over here. All right. So the cognitive functions. So there are 4 functions, right? 4, right? We have intuition, sensing, thinking, and feeling. There are 4 of those functions. Now those functions have 2 polarities. They're either I introverted or E extroverted. Okay? There's 2 polarities. And there are 2 priorities. They're either perceiving or judging. Okay? They're either perceiving or judging. Now, let's see. Okay, so we can go to this screen here, right? So you have intuition, sensing, thinking, and feeling. Those are your 4 functions. Extroverted, introverted are the polarities and the priorities. All right, let's go to this one. All right, so that combination of things gives you 8 cognitive functions, right? Or at least 8 aspects of all of those things. So you got extroverted and introverted for each of them, right? Extroverted intuition, extroverted sensing, introverted sensing, extroverted thinking, introverted thinking, and extroverted feeling, introverted feeling. Okay, so we have that laid out. Let me go to my next thing here. What did I want to cover with the rest of it? Okay, I know what we want to do. All right, let's go to... All right. So when we're looking at Meyers-Briggs, and there are some of you that did come up to me, and we're going to have plenty of opportunity for people to come up and ask questions about their letters, about whatever questions you have about any of this stuff, right? Because the next couple hours, I don't have teaching per se. There'll be teachings based on the questions, right? As fast as you want to ask questions, then maybe we get out of here early. We'll see how it goes. We could actually be here plenty of time because there's lots we could talk about with this. I don't have a problem charting out people's stuff and kind of helping you understand. But interestingly enough, like my daughter came up to me earlier, she wanted me to go through hers a little bit, and then she wanted me to help figure out her husband. But we did it through the letters and what they are, like the functions and what they are, not through a test. Okay, what does he primarily do? Are you primarily led by your thinking side or your feeling side or your intuitive side or your sensing side? Okay, what's dominant? And then we could start there and then figure out, okay, based on that dominant, then the second thing would be one of the others. So if you're dominant with a perceiving function, N or S, then you are going to be with a co-pilot or auxiliary, T or F. If you're dominant with a T or F, you're going to have a second function that is N or S, okay? So we can see kind of how that goes. All right, now, so we'll go back to the decoding again. So you can have something like ENTP. I'm going to actually, I'll spread it out more and we'll explain it much slower. Okay, so that's a 4-letter code from Meyers-Briggs. Thank you, Meyers-Briggs. Okay, so the first letter is going to be the polarity. Is it introverted or extroverted? And remember, it's not introverted like outgoing, and introverted is shy and quiet. You can have some pretty Rebbitzin, she's pretty outgoing. She's an ISFJ, okay? So I has to do with how you direct your 2 functions. It has nothing to do with necessarily you're just a shy, quiet person, okay? If you're introverted. You're not just an outgoing, bubbly, expressive person like normally extroverted. So think of it more like internally focused and externally focused, all right? Internally energized, externally energized. All right, now, okay, so like an I would be more energized being by themselves, okay, having time to process a bunch of stuff, where an E would want to be more around people. That would be more your normal way of looking at introvert, extrovert. but I'm talking about how you gain energy, okay? Now, you may have a quiet person, though, that's an E, who likes to be in groups, and that's how they get their energy, but they're not very expressive. They're not very outgoing. It's not really the way it works. Okay, now, so the E or I, we'll put another one here, the opposite letters, okay? So the E or I says that the first, okay, or dominant, okay, your dominant function is going to either be an E or an I function. The dominant, it doesn't mean it's the next letter, right? These are just the way Meyers-Briggs does. Remember, Meyers-Briggs does E or I, then perceiving, then judging, okay, and then the priorities. That order doesn't change, whether it's an E or an I or whatever. However, the E, when we start stacking, okay, the stack is going to say that the E, if it's an E, that's the top of the stack. The dominant is going to be your E function, your extroverted function. Everybody understand that? If it's an I, the top of your stack is an introverted function. All right? So, ENTP, the last letter, determines which letter gets the extroverted. The perceiving function, one of these, right? These are your perceivers, okay? Actually, I got an idea. All right. So your perceivers here in blue and your judges here in red, okay? So this is, we'll make this a red one. Okay? So you can see how that works, okay? Now, so in the ENTP, it's a perceiver. That means that the N, the perceiving, is going to be extroverted. In the ISFJ, the J says that the judging function is going to be extroverted. All right? Now, if we're making a stack for the ENTP, E gets the top of the stack. So that's NE. In the ISFJ, it says the I gets the top of the stack. So this would be SI, right? SI, and that's TI, all right? Remember, you simply reverse the polarity for the other letter, all right? Once you know which one has the E, the other one has the I. All right? So ENTP would be NE, right? Then TI. Then we infer the FE and the SI, okay? Whereas the ISFJ would be SI, okay, right? ISFJ, then FE, TI, NE, all right, like that. So the dominant, okay, here, right? You see how that worked? Did that make more sense now? We were trying to explain it? No? Still not? All right? All right, let's take something like, I don't know, let's see, ISFJ. Okay, just pick some other letters. Oh, that's what we normally do. Let's do like an ESTJ. All right, use some different letters in there. So, which one is extroverted? Which one? Shout it out. T. Okay, which is your dominant? No, the one that has the E. So the TE is dominant. All right? So it would be TE, SI, right? NE, FI. All right? You can see that there. But what if we did this? What if we made this an I? Okay? The J still says this gets the E, but the I says that the I is dominant, so it's SITE. Okay, like that. Is that making more sense now? Are we following this? All right? So what if we took the J and made it a P? Okay? So what gets the E? The perceiving function. What's dominant? The I. So it's TI, SE, NI, FE. Okay? What if we made this an E? All right? This still would be the same, right? The P would still be here. This is TI, but the E is now dominant. SE, TI, FE, NI. All right? Is that making some sense? Are you following it now? Okay? This determines what gets the extroverted. This determines what is dominant. Okay? The order of the letters doesn't change. You're always going to have the polarity, perceiving, judging, and then priority. Okay? All right? So, again, ENTP, polarity, perceiving, judging, priority. That's always the order of your letters in the code of the letters. But that doesn't tell you straight out what's dominant. Okay? Now, if you're an EP, the letters are in the right order. Okay? So this will be dominant, this will be second. If you're an IJ, they'll be in the right order. But if you're an EJ and an EJ and an IP, they'll be reversed. Okay? All right? Because an ENTJ, this is the E, so this is dominant. And in the ENTP, this is the E, and the E is dominant. You see how they reversed? Okay? All right. Let's see what else I wanted to tell you. Might be easier to do that from here. All right. Okay. So the last thing I showed you was the 4 brains, or your 4 personality, your 4 types holistic model, the way I described it. Okay, so you've got an ego, you got an unconscious or shadow. Whoop. You've got a subconscious over here, and then you've got the superego. Okay? And so I kind of normally do it this way. So I have this direction, I have this direction, or I have this direction. Okay? And it has to do with connectivity. Where are you better connected? What describes you better? Okay? Now, if you're this way, okay, then you're only you only have 4 of your functions. They're just rotated. I'll show it to you again when I draw it out, right? When you're this way, you only have 4, but when you're this way, you have all 8. All right? And this way, you have all 8. So let me draw this out for you. All right, now, so we'll do an ENTP, okay, which I'll have it as an ETI, FE, and SI, okay? We'll kind of make a grid this way, all right? This is your ego. Your sub is ISFJ, so it's SI, FE, TI, and NE. Okay, so what you can see here, same letters here and here. They're just rotated in where the positions are, right? NE, NE, TI, TI, FE, FE, SI, SI. Okay, so if you happen to be really good at these 4 things, the reason I say really good is because your dominant here is N, and your weakest is SI, but your dominant here is SI, and your weakest is NE. So if you're actually pretty good at SI and NE, you might be connected this way. Does that make sense? Okay? So you may have a relationship like this. All right, now, to go down here to the shadow, okay, so this is the sub. This is your shadow or unconscious. I mean, either way, okay? To go down to that one, we just take the outside letters and reverse them. So this would still be an NT, but it's going to be an IJ, okay? Same as the ego, just take the outside letters and reverse them. Okay, and that would give you an NI. Remember, J, E gets the T gets the E. This is NI, I leads. Did we see that? J determines that the thinking gets the extroverted, makes this introverted, I leads. Okay? All right? Okay, like that. So if you look, the letters are the same, N, N, T, T, F, F, S, S. In the same positions, it's just reverse the polarity. Did we follow that? All you're doing is reversing the polarity. So an ENTP who is shadow connected this way, okay, is really good at N. Okay, that's dominating in both, right? This is still the dominant. The first one's still the dominant. The second one's still the auxiliary or the co-pilot, right? The driver, co-pilot, hero, parent, whatever you want to use, right? But notice that I have NE and NI, TI and TE, FE and FI, and SI and SE. I've got all 8. Okay? I got all 8 going on there. But you can see if somebody is connected this way, like my wife's, hers would be SI and SE. She's very S. I think she's very shadow or unconscious connected. Okay? Because her S is strong in both places, right? Okay? So, okay, we can do it on this side. Same thing on this side. Okay, what we're going to do with this one is we're going to go ahead and take the outside letters and reverse them. The same thing we did here, we're going to do here. Step on this side, okay? So it's still SF, but it's EP, okay? So what that's going to do is the P says that the S is E, right? The F is the I, and I. Okay, if you also notice, it's the flip of this one. The shadow and the superego, okay, they're flipped just like these two are flipped. NI, NI, TE, TE, FI, FI, SE, SE, right? Now, if I'm looking at an ISFJ, just make believe this is the left side of the chart. ISFJ, this is the ego. This is the unconscious or shadow. This would be the subconscious, and this would be the superego. Okay? So let's say this is my wife, right? SI dominant, SE dominant. She's very feeling-based over thinking-based, okay? So FE and FI, that makes sense. I think she's very much this way, just like I think I'm very much this way, all right? And of course, you could actually be this way, okay? Which again, this way you have all 8, but they're in reverse, right? So I've got N on top here, S on top here, S on the bottom here, N on the bottom here. So I think to some degree, that's probably the ultimate balance. Does that make sense? Your ego and your superego together gives you the ultimate balance. Okay? Now, let me do this a different way. Nope. I need more room. All right, now, so if this is the ENTP, this would be the INTJ, this would be the ISFJ, and the ESFP, all right? Just like we drew them before, and I'm going to show it to you in the car model, right? So you'd be NETIFESI, all right? This one would be SI, FE, TI, and E, okay? This one, right, the J goes to the T, so it's NI, TE. So it's the same as this, but just the reverse polarities, right? FI, SE. And then this one is same as this, okay? Or a flip of this, right? So it's SE, FI, TE, and I. All right? So now you see it in the car model. Top left is your driver, your passenger, or your co-pilot, your 10-year-old, and your 3-year-old. So if I use the word seats, like in a car, when you go from your ego to your sub, everybody's just changing seats. Same people in the car. All right? Same people in the car. When you go from your ego to your shadow, well, what you've got is your opposite twin sitting in the seat in the car. So the driver is an N, but the driver's twin is driving in the other car. Another N, right? So same seats, just the other half. So if N is a complete, when you have I and E, half of it's the E, half of it's the I. Well, these seats are the same positions, just the opposite polarities. Same thing here. Same positions, opposite polarities. Okay? All right? When you go from ego to superego, everybody's changing places and everybody's different. Is that helping at all to go over it again like that? Okay? Good. Good. All right. So when I draw it out and you see me say something like this for sub-connected or this for unconscious connected, I'm talking about this is sub-connected and this is unconscious or shadow connected. Because that's the way it is on my papers. I do have papers possibly to hand out to you guys later so you can have some. One per family or couple or whatever, please. All right? I didn't print that many. There's 17 pages in the one that's with the car seats and the individual. There's 16 personalities and one main sheet that has all of the ego cars. Okay? So an individual sheet for each one. So ENTP has a sheet, ENTJ has a sheet, ESTJ has a sheet, right? All of them have a sheet. Okay, so I have that for you. And I also have my complete notes that I just taught out of. All right? Okay. I don't want to give it to you now because you'll be distracted. Of course, standing here in front of the board and having the fan not blow on me is not helping at all. So I have to figure out how to do something with that. Put it on a little bit of an angle. All right, so let's see if there's anything else I wanted to make sure to refresh before we open up for questions. All right, so just remember that when you do a group, okay, so like ENTP, ISFJ, INTJ, and ESFP. Okay, that was your four, right? Your four different brains for the ENTP. All of those have the same four in theirs. Just switch somebody to the top, switch the other people into the other positions. Okay, so those are the same four. So all of the 16 are broken up into 4 groups of 4. Does that make sense? That's why I was able to show you my wife's and mine on the same chart, because she's on my chart. Okay? So if somebody has a personality style that's in your 4, there's something in common between you guys. Okay? Because you're either somebody's shadow, or you're somebody's superego, or you're their subconscious, right? There's some sort of connection there. I haven't figured out what that all is about yet. That's one of the things I've been kind of still, I'm still NEing it, okay? Because I'm still bringing in more data, and then I'll NI it to figure out what the connection points are. You see how that all works? Okay? So how am I going to NE it? I'm going to go in S and gather a lot of data from my own experiences and from other people's experiences. All right? Okay. And then that was the other thing I did in my stack, okay? So actually, we'll go up. We're going to build this. On the bottom, we have S, which is data, okay? Which is experience. And that could be either yours or somebody else's, okay? It doesn't matter. But that's where we start. Information. Okay, so everybody starts with S. Even if you drive with S, it doesn't matter. If you don't drive with S, it doesn't matter, okay? Because even though I have S is my last and N is my first, I need the information from S to do the N, okay? Now, then we have to do something with that data. So we have an evaluation process through T or F, okay? This is where we evaluate or judge what to do with the data, okay? You do that through your feelings or your thoughts, all right? You have that data, and you're going to evaluate it. What do I need to feel about this? What are my thoughts on this subject? You know, does it feel okay to you? Does that sound right to you? Is it good or bad? Whatever, correct or not correct? See, thinkers are about things being correct or not. Feelers are about it being right or wrong. Not like technically right or wrong, that's more the thinker, but emotionally, morally. Okay? Now, then the last thing we do as the information is flowing this way is we decide what to do with it in terms of what does it mean for the future? Okay? Okay, what does it mean? Okay? But specifically, going forward, okay? What does it mean going forward? Because you're going to decide what it means here, T or F. Is it good, is it bad, or whatever. What does it mean going forward? I mean, what do I take this information to understand the future, or what to understand the next time something happens, I'll know what to do? In other words, what am I learning from this for next time, or whatever else is coming out there, all right? So it's the intuitive part. So that's my functional stack as for actually how things actually stack. I don't know what I called it. Did I call it that? I called it something like that. Yeah, the functional stack, okay? All right, now, you have all 8 of these things. All right, that's why I don't like limiting yourselves to Meyers-Briggs. Do the test. It's fun. It'll tell you something. It'll give you a place to start, all right? I've had quite a few people come up to me saying, well, I thought it was this, and then I did it again. I thought it was that. And oh, boy. Understand what the code is telling you and say, okay, that doesn't sound like me, or oh, that part does, and try to figure out, okay, what actually is you. Because okay, I'll show you what that doesn't do. See, if I was to draw out I'll draw me. I would be N-E, N-I, and then whatever, right? T, probably T-I-T-E, something like that. But Meyers-Briggs doesn't allow for like an E-N-N-P. Okay? It doesn't allow you to have 2 N's. Or my wife would be S-I-S-E, or something like that. Well, sometimes I think she's more S-E-S-I. Okay? So their code doesn't allow for these things. All right? Now, some of you will look at a Meyers-Briggs thing and read, ENTP is the debater. This one is the architect. This one is the whatever, right? The entertainer. That may not be you. Look, I hate to use this as an analogy, but it's actually, I guess, a good one. Probably all of you at some point, looked at your astrology, at your sign, and you read a book to see what your sign was, and it either matched or didn't match you. How many of you, when you read it, it matched you? All right, how many it didn't match you? So half and half almost. Because I know when I read mine, it matched me really good. But my brother, who's the exact same sign, 3 days difference in birth, isn't anything like it. See, one size doesn't fit all when you're trying to use something to describe a group. Because there are too many other factors involved, right? So the astrology people, I'm not for astrology. I'm just saying, they would tell you, well, it depends on what day and what year and what minute and where the stars were. Okay, good. Bring in more factors. Now, I'm not recommending you do that. I'm just saying is with this, there's more factors. I'm just using an analogy. If you just have an ENTP, I just have an N and a T. And only in one polarity each. Where's the other 6? I mean, people can infer, okay, which is a later affectation, that if you're an ENTP, where your F and your S are. All right? If I'm an NETI, that must mean I'm an FESI. Okay. How you just got that? Okay, I guess, right? Because you have to have the opposite polarities to be complete. And so if I'm NE, my other perceiving has to be SI. If I'm TI, my other judging has to be FE. All right? And vice versa, flip them around any way you want. Okay, you're going to have an I and an E in the perceiving and an I and an E in the judging. Okay? I just want to make sure. But just remember, as you're looking at these things, don't get caught up in, this is me talking to all the more rigid, whatever letters make you more rigid, especially the J's. Okay? Oh, but I watched this video and it said this. Yes, I know. I watched all of that stuff. Trust me. Okay? So what I tried to give you is something that can work, period. Like actually just work, all right? The labels that I chose for describing things, I think, are really across the board for everybody in that label, okay? As opposed to some of the labels other people have picked up that only really describe a percentage, maybe a large percentage, but a percentage of the people in that letter, particular letter category, all right? So like calling FE harmony, I think that's great as far as FEs are into harmony. I just don't think it's everything about FE. I think it's more about connecting, okay? So that's what I gave it, connecting, all right? So I think that sometimes the choices were too limited, all right? It didn't really catch the full essence of the letter. So I gave you my labels. And they're not really my labels. Some of them are labels other people used, and I just took this one from that person, this one from that person, because I thought, I felt, FT, whatever. I thought that they worked better, all right? This is my TI. Internally, in my own way of, logically putting it together, I thought these worked better, all right, in a TI sort of way. Now, and so I'm trying to simplify things so that it covers things in a much more clear way without it being, well, that doesn't sound like me. Well, let's look at what all the other stuff is. Also, remember I talked about percentages. What if you're kind of, 55, 45, J or P or E or I or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So then that could be really tough, which is why I want you to look at the 4 different, all right? So if somebody is unconscious connected, their driver is pretty strong, period. Whether it's an E or an I, okay? Like for me, NI and NE and NI, or my wife, SI and SE, that's the strong driver, period. You're just sensing is your major thing, all right? And so hopefully that clarifies that. I was talking about the dominance. I don't think it really matters that much. You'll notice that, the J dominants are NI, SI, TE, and FE. And look, just go with what I showed you. The first letter tells you which polarity is dominant. The last letter tells you which one gets which polarity. Simple as that, okay? It's funny. I can tell you how this all worked. Until I found somebody to explain that in one of the videos, I noticed a pattern, right? N's notice patterns. And I noticed that EPs and IJs went straight across in the right order. And I noticed that IPs and EJs reversed. I didn't know why. Then until someone explained to me that the last letter tells you which one gets the E, the extrovert. I just watched and noticed the pattern. EPs go straight across. IJs go straight across. First letter is the dominant, second letter is not. It's the second one, right? But that's not the way it works in the the IP or the EJ. Okay, so I realized they're flipped. All right, so it just helped to finally have somebody say, well, the reason this is the first letter tells you which one's dominant, the last letter tells you which one gets which polarity. Oh, there you go. Simple. All right, so if you have a comment or question, I see we got a couple of people already lined up. If you're on live stream, you can start typing in. We'll try to get to you as well. And we're going to begin with Mr. Stephen Abel.
Hey, Rabbi, thank you for this teaching. I just kind of wanted to run some stuff by you in the way that my brain's processing it and make sure I'm kind of following. For the layout and order, how you're kind of breaking it down, for me, I could almost see like an Excel spreadsheet on top of it with the labels over each column. And as you basically go with your polarity and priority and all that, basically it helps you kind of keep them in order and realize that each one has a value and kind of independent of itself.
Yes, that would be good. And actually, the one sheet I have with the 17 pages, the 16 personnel, that one was made in an Excel spreadsheet.
Nice. Awesome. And then the other thing, too, is it almost seems like people feel like they're taking this to kind of see who they are, meaning they're kind of stuck like this. And I know you've not made it sound that way. So like for me, what I'm seeing is that it's a beginning point. It's basically an assessment to see where you're at this point in time, that they can be developed, like you said, right? And that as at some point as we develop them, we should be able to turn on or off each attribute as needed based on the situation to be more successful at that time.
Yes.
Okay. And then...
Wait, hold on. Before you go to the next thing, let me just I want to draw something.
Yes, sir.
All right. So we'll keep using me. Okay, because the one I know the best, right, obviously. All right, so All right, so here's the stack. Now, I want you to understand something. Whatever you are, okay, this is the ones you use the most. It doesn't mean you use them very well necessarily. All right? So what he was saying, I want you to understand, you want to have all 8 of them functioning well. Some of them use a lot, but you don't use them very well. It malfunctions, dysfunctions, or some other thing. They're not non-functioning. This may be non-functioning further down the way, but these 2 you use the most. It doesn't mean you use them well. Okay? Just like somebody could say, well, I'm red, I'm blue, I got a whole lot of it. Well, but do you use it well? Does it function well?
Yep.
All right? Because I had a guy here that said he had more red than me, but I didn't see it the way my red looked because he didn't use it the same way I did. He had some of the negative stuff I didn't have and different things that there's lots of aspects. So just remember, these 2, especially the top one here, right, are your most naturally flowed into. How's that? Your default flow is to be your top one and then your second one to balance that out. However, you might not do it very well, okay? It could malfunction or dysfunction on a regular enough basis. Odds are it functions pretty good most of the time. That's why it's your dominant one, okay? Now, the idea that Steve was talking about is that if this is me, and I'll take the flip of it, which is the unconscious, okay, which would be N-I, well, actually, why don't we go all the way to the superego, which would be S-E-F-I-T-E-N-I, like that, okay? My goal would be to have all of this functioning just like the top. So here my intuitive is working really great, and my sensing, thinking, and feeling, right? I've got all of it sort of balancing out. I want all 8 working optimally. So this, as always, is giving you a starting point, okay?
Right.
You understand? I'm pretty sure that's what Steve was talking about, right?
Exactly.
I want you to make sure that you're looking at these things as this is your ground zero, all right? This is where you are right now in that snapshot of time. You can work on these things, and you can evolve them and grow them and develop them. Okay, just because you're sensing doesn't mean you can't develop your intuitive. It may take a little while, all right? If you're thinking, you may need to develop feeling. Feeling, you might need to develop thinking, okay? If you're intuitive, maybe you're not really good at being in the moment. Sometimes you need to be present. If you watch me, sometimes if you're talking to me, I'm already looking past you, thinking about the next thing that has to happen, because I'm already ending. It's hard for me to SE and be there. The person who can sit there and just talk to you and is fully in your focus, and that's an SE person right there. They're able to just be there, engaging with the now, all right? I'm already thinking about what's next. I already got now figured out, fine, good, I'm going to the next thing. But I might need to learn to engage better in now, right? None of these is better than the others. Everything has its, remember, in the stack I gave you, you needed all of it, right? You have to have experience, yours and others, to get anywhere. Then you have to think about it and feel something about it. Probably both, to some whatever degree. Then you got to figure out, well, what does this mean going forward? Is there any pattern here I need to connect together and notice something, right? All of it. You got to be able to do all of it.
Well, so in my brain, because I'm kind of used to play a lot of video games back in the day, don't have time for it now, but it almost reminds me of like a create-a player game, like an RPG or even like 2K basketball, where you have all these attributes, and even though you start at low levels in certain things, basically as you develop those attributes, you become more successful in the later levels as you level up, right? And so that's kind of how my brain is seeing it. So you have like 0 to 100 on, it could be agility, this, that, and in this case, it's these things. And as you basically develop them more and more, you're able to level up. It's kind of how I was seeing it.
Right. We're going to be talking about things like that as we go into tomorrow's level up. But here's the thing, right? Let's take his video game analogy. Some of you may be really good at the strategy part of the game and figuring out what's going on and how, what needs to happen, but you might not be very mechanically in the moment adept at pushing the buttons quick and doing the actual mechanics of the game, all right? Which is why when I play video games, I play strategy games, shocking, N-E-T-I. So I want to figure out how to beat the game here, okay? Now, I might go up against somebody playing a game that's sort of a first-person whatever game, and you go against people, and I'm not pushing those buttons all that quick and remembering what button to push. And so you're killing me easily. Okay? But any strategy, I might completely have you by using the right strategy. Okay? So that's one of those deals. Like, okay, so we used to play this game. My son and I played this game. All right? Balloons Tower Defense. Anybody know that game? It's a really fun game. All you're doing is popping balloons. Okay? You got monkeys throwing darts at it. You got these little monkeys popping balloons. Anyway. But he would get this idea, I'm going to beat this round just using this one way of popping balloons, which wouldn't work. And I would beat the round figuring out what was the best way to go about it. What's the fastest, most efficient way to do it? Okay? Strategy. But that's because of the way my NT, right, type of thing didn't let the feelings go. He was emotionally attached to this thing that he was committed that it was going to work this way. But it wasn't. And I said, do you want to beat the round or you want to just try to keep forcing this thing that doesn't work? But see, any of you could have that experience in life where you keep trying to force something that doesn't work because you're not using your intuitive part very well. To say, oh, that doesn't work, we need to try something else, okay? Now, so I just want you to know that these are great analogies for the way we handle life. Okay, and what was your name again?
Jim.
Hey, Jim, what's up?
So for doing this assessment with the ego, subconscious, shadow, and superego, for laying all that out, you need a 4-letter code to start with. What would be the procedure to get?
No, you don't need a 4-letter code. You do need to figure out your stack. So you can figure out your stack simply. Okay, let me show you. All right. So we were doing this with Ben, my son-in-law. My daughter was helping me describe him and try to figure things out. And we figured out that he's very much SE. Okay? All right. We could be wrong, but that's what we were guessing. He's SE, which makes him either FI or TI. Okay? Okay, he's SE. So we figured, okay, he seems to be FI, where he deals with his feelings internally, not outside and not where everybody can see them. It's not about connecting that way, which then would make him TE, because we actually figured out he was SE and TE. That's what we figured. That's how we got the FI. But there isn't a code that goes ST where they're both E. Okay, so we came up with this code this way. He was SETE, which forced this to be FI, which then forces this to be NI, okay? And so then we came up with him being, what see if you guys can figure this out. What 4-letter code gets you this? If SE is dominant, what's the first letter? E, okay? If SE gets the E, what's the last letter? P, right? Because the S is a perceiving function. Wow, you already figured that out. See how easy that was? And so then we're SF, okay? SEFI. All right, so he would be ESFP. If we're right, we were just putting things together just as an exercise. So you don't need to start off with a 4-letter code. You can build one. But if, as you're figuring yourself out, if you have 2 I's in a row or 2 E's in a row, then you need to separate the second one over and stick the opposite thing in the middle. All right? So when we were first looking at Ben, we came up with, okay, he's SE and he's TE. All right? So that means that needs to be a FI in the middle here. Okay? And then this would be NI. Okay? So we do it that way. Did that answer the question?
Yes. Clarifying question. The 2 middle letters, would they ever both be I's or both be E's?
No, that's kind of the point, exactly. Okay? So they can't be the same. So when we were looking at his, we came up with SC first and TE second, okay? Or at least both of those in some order, TESC or SETE, which means that we needed an I in between them, all right? What if you come up with 2 I's? You need an E in between them, right? Now, is it helpful to start with the 4-letter code? Probably, but it also can make it harder if you kind of tend to lock in on something. But it said I was this. Well, maybe you're not. Okay, it's how you answered the questions, and it's there's not always a lot of there's not always enough questions to really get the full thing. All right, Daphne.
Hi. Okay, I have kind of the big sticking point to me is the E and the I at the beginning and how do you figure that out. Because every time I take it, I'm an NFP, but it switches between E and I. They're like so close together, it switches all the time.
Right.
So I'm trying to figure out, and like what he just said, you can't have an E and an I in the middle, right? So,
No, you can't have an I and an I in the middle.
You could have an E and an E in the middle?
Can't have an E and an E in the middle. They have to be opposite.
So by
It
figuring
could be IE or EI.
So if I think I'm
EI-E-I-O.
So if I'm pretty sure I deal with my feelings internally.
We're
Right?
dealing with old McDonald's cognitive functions.
So if I think my feeling is internal, because you said like with Ben.
All right.
If you
So what are your two letters that you're going back and forth with? N and F? But which direction they go?
Whether I'm ENFP or INFP.
All right. So ENFP would be, right, ENFP. Okay. And the other one is what?
INFP.
INFP. Okay. So then what we're doing with the I, okay, so then we're going to be, right, INFP. So this is the E, this is the I. So it's FINE. Okay. That's the only difference is which one's driving.
Oh, so either way, it's the introverted feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and either way, it's
Either way, you have the same thing between those. Now, you could see yourself as two similar enough things, but yet they're, if you're just reversing this out, you're still NE, right? P gives the E, I drives here.
Okay.
ENFP, all right, the E drives. So this is your ENFP, and this is your INFP, right?
So it's really whether or not my intuition or my feelings are driving?
Which one is the one you do more, which is dominant, right? That's why they use that word, dominant, right?
Is there any such thing as an ambivert?
No, it's not that is there such a thing. That is the goal. To have
off.
all of them sort of balanced situationally as needed.
Okay.
Okay?
I guess I'm doing that then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Here's another question about the intuitiveness. Like, I am very future focused, right? I've even taken other types of personality tests that say that. And sometimes I struggle with being in the moment. Is that part of the N function?
Yes.
And is there something...
The N is going to struggle with being in the moment.
Is there anything practically that you can do to, like, balance that better?
You just got to practice being in the moment.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so the way you, again, anything that you're doing with personality tests, love languages, any of these type of things tells you what you do naturally. Without effort, that's where your default is. The default means without thinking about it, that's what you do. That's how you respond to situations. That's where you go, okay? Now, that means that the other ones you can do with effort or thought, conscious effort, in other words. It's not like hard effort, but just like you have to actually be thinking about it, okay? So like, for example, with the love languages, my wife's and I's are completely opposite. So we don't naturally just speak each other's language, although after 27 years we're getting better at it, right? But we had to think about, this is what he needs, this is what she needs to know that she feels loved or he feels loved. So I have to think to make sure to do it. I don't just do it, all right? Whereas, for example, I always use the example of myself and my daughter Brianna. We have the same language. So we just naturally, what we do is always speaking each other's language, okay? Because that's just how we both normally do it. So the same thing with the letters. You by default, all right, I tend to intuit things, which is why a lot of times you guys can kind of garble out something and I know what you're trying to say. But how do I know what you're trying to say? I've got a ton of data of other people trying to say, of you trying to say, of the situation, of the context, of the body language, right? And so I can put all that information together and pull it together pretty much in an I way, all right? And come up with, oh, this is what you're trying to ask. This is really what's going on. Because often in counseling, people will say things to me and I'll say, no, that's not the problem. You're like, what? No, it's underneath that and underneath that. How do I know that? From experience, from S. I got a bunch of data, okay? And I'm able to piece that data together and see where it goes. All right. So that was good for Daphne. And you, I forgot your first name.
Deb.
Deb?
Debbie.
Yeah,
Okay.
Deb. Okay, good.
Shalom, Rabbi.
Shalom.
So where do I start? I'm really confused about this. So,
And so are a lot of people. How many people are still confused? See, almost all the hands. There you go.
I mean, I even called my husband and he was like, Rabbi's teaching. I'm really confused. So I did take my test just to see where I was at. And I'm ESFJ. It pretty much fit me to a T, but I just don't I don't understand like all the lettering that you're using, like how it all falls into place. I just can't seem to wrap my head around it.
ESFJ, right?
Right.
Okay. So what does that mean to you at this point? She was like, nothing. Okay. It's 4 letters on a board. Okay. So the J says what?
Judging.
No, but what's the J telling us?
Oh.
It doesn't, it's telling us something. It's telling us what letter gets the E, the extroverted. Okay? So which one? The judging letter gets the extroverted, which is which one? The S or the F?
Oh, no.
Judging letters, perceiving letters, always in that order. Okay? So it's either N or S or F or T, right?
Right.
Okay. All right. E, S, F, what? There we go. F, J. Okay, so this is FE. This is SI. Okay, they're always going to have opposite polarity. This tells you the judging letter gets the E.
Okay.
All right? Now, this letter tells you which one is dominant. That also is the dominant. So you would have an FE dominant followed by SI, right? And then you would go the opposite of the SI and then the, okay? So that's your stack.
Okay.
Okay? Or if you want your car model, it's this way. Okay? All right, so again, the last letter tells you which of the two, remember, you got 2 columns here. You got judging and perceiving, okay? Which one gets the extrovert? The J. If we made this a P, it would be the S, okay? And this tells you which one is dominant,
Okay.
okay?
I guess that makes a little bit more sense to me.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. And by the way, on your papers, when I do give them out, for each of your types, you'll have car models for all 4 of the holistic brains, so to speak, and you'll also have vertical stacks. You'll have both, okay? Now, bear in mind, I did this as a very impatient N, so if I messed it up, just let me know if there's a mistake in any of them. I tried to catch most of it, so hopefully I caught all of it. Because every now and then I was in a hurry trying to do this, that, or the other thing, so I could have just kind of juxtaposed something. All right? So don't just think the paper's perfect. Double check it. Use the tools that I gave you to make sure that I did it right. Okay? That'll be good practice for you. All right, Mr. Conabear.
Thank you, Rabbi.
John?
I tried to make the letters, but I could not figure them out, so I just copied down when you were talking about the personality. I just wrote down the letters that matched me.
Good.
It's S-I-N-I-T-I-F-I-P.
All right, so we have no extroverted anything. All right. S-I. Go ahead, say it again.
N-I.
N-I.
T-I.
T-I.
F-I-P.
What was the last one? F-I?
Yep. P.
And then you came up with a P?
Yep.
That's amazing how you had a P when there's no E anywhere. That's okay. This is still these are perceiving functions, so it does make sense, right? His top 2 are perceiving functions. Okay. So let's see how we can get some of that stuff. Well, I'll leave that there. Let's see what we can do. All right. So if we have an I-P with an S here, we can get an SI. Okay, we can get an SI. With a E-J and an S here, we can get an SI. Okay? So that's 2 ways we can get an SI. Let's see, for an NI, so I just want to see how we can kind of get those 4 in there. Let me look at something. No. I'm going to look at my little reference sheet here and see how we can get that to work. Okay, so all right, that's S-I-N-I. Okay, so there's a possibility there. So let me put this one down. To get some of these things, I might have to use something like an ISTJ. I know that doesn't really have the P there, but let me just see how that plays out. That's going to give us some of it. Let me see another one. INFJ. Do I have a P? How about the ES? There we go. Oh, still the INFJ. Okay, we have an INFJ. Okay, so what am I looking at? Just to make this easier, okay? So I'm looking at, so he said NI, SI, TI, all the I's, right?
Yep.
FI, all right, pretty much. All right, is that pretty much it?
Yep.
Okay. So what I'm looking for is an ego that has either NI or SI or TI or FI driving. Did you have any sense of what's your strongest one of those four?
I'm kind of going with the flow kind of person. I go with the flow.
You go with the flow. Okay. I guess the closest thing to with the flow would be none of them. You may need to reevaluate your choices, Mr. John. The only thing that says you go with the flow is when you said P. But you picked nothing that actually goes with the flow.
Well, I don't make plans. Basically, I don't like making plans because stuff always mess up the plans and that.
All right, so why did you say NI instead of NE?
I just try to write it down as you were talking.
Okay.
I might have messed up a little bit then.
Because if you're NE, SI, that could work a whole lot better. Okay? And then the only thing would have to be this FI or FE, but you can get your FI in your subconscious, in your shadow. Okay? Because this would give you almost a, either an ISFJ or an ENTP. All right? Okay? Because you could have this go that way, right? Because that would be NE, TI, FE, SI, like that. All right? So there's different ways that we could do this. We also do one that leads with SI, which would be like an ISFJ. All right? And so you're going to have to go back and see if any of these are actually, again, you heard me say it quickly. You'll have to read the papers. All right?
Thank you.
But you see, this is the kind of work that an N has to do. I have information. Where's the pattern? How does this work? And why would I necessarily limit myself to the 4 letters in the order they do it? Why can't he be NI, SI, TI, FI? I mean, seriously, if we didn't have the preconceived idea of the way the Meyers-Briggs works, why wouldn't you be able to do that? Why would you have all eyes? All eyes were on John a minute ago. All right. All right. Another Janet is up here.
Yes.
This is the other Janet.
Janet. Rabbi, I'm not understanding anything. I know about the J means judging and the P means perceiving. I don't know what test they're talking about.
Okay, so you can go online. You can go 16 personalities. Just look that up. There's lots of different tests for that, or Meyers-Briggs, MBTI. Lots of websites for that. The one that a lot of people here did was done by a group called Personality Hackers, okay, which is Antonia, whatever her name is, I can't remember everybody's name, and Joel Mark, whatever. There's a couple that does a podcast and everything, and they have a book and it has a test in it. So a lot of people here did that test, okay.
But
it doesn't matter. It's a starting point.
yeah, okay, so you say it is a starting point?
Well,
I thought you said to don't do the test.
No, I mean, you can. I'm just saying is that it's just a starting point.
Okay.
Okay? Because how many of you have taken the test more than once and gotten a different answer? Look at all the hands. Probably a third of the room, almost half, okay? Mm-hmm. But at least it's a starting point. It gives you something to work with. Because even if you look at it and say, that doesn't sound like me, you've made a distinction that's important, part of the end, right? I've learned something I can use towards figuring this out, all right? It's data, okay? Being right or wrong are both useful in trying to figure out the truth. If you figure out something's wrong, that helps. If you figure out something's right, that helps, all right?
Okay.
So certainly take the test, Okay? I don't doubt that I'm an ENTP. I don't like necessarily the way they describe ENTPs because it doesn't necessarily describe me. Okay? That's because, I'll tell you why, because they're looking at it just the ego. I've got so much happening in the other areas, and I've developed my other areas because I've been doing this for working on me for 40 years, 45 years, since I was 14, 15 years old. So, I'm not going to come out the same as an ENTP who hasn't done that. Okay?
Okay, and then also you said something about the
Got to
past.
put it right.
You had said something about the past, that the past has to be included in this too?
No, I'm just saying is that when you're dealing with S or sensation or experience, S is sensing, right? We deal with sensing. Oh, that's what the other word was. They called it sensation. I think it's more experiencing. But anyway, when you're dealing with the S, okay, S is either in the moment and using that moment to make assumptions of what the future might look like because it's based on the moment, or SI is looking at the things that have already happened, and now when I'm in the moment, I'm always, in the back of my brain is always going, what is this similar to? Did we like it last time? Did it go well? What happened? Even if you're not conscious of it, your brain is doing that, okay? So you're looking at the present through a past filter. Okay?
But what happens if your past is it's different than what you are now? Does that
No.
difference
It doesn't matter what your past or whatever it was. I mean, you're looking at it through right now. Right now, do you look at things through the past as a filter?
Okay.
Okay? You should eventually be able to. I use the past from the point of view of going, I know that is, you ready for this as an N? That is one way things could go. An SI might say, that's the way things go. That's what happened. That's what I expect to happen again. As an N, I'm thinking, that's something that can happen because it happened before. So it could happen again. But also something else might happen again. See the difference?
Okay,
But-
so is that where you're worried when you do that?
Okay, so worry is not being able to end the future, right? To intuitively understand the future. Worry is, I don't know what's going to happen. I can't connect dots to figure out where this is going. Anxiety, same thing. It's all about the future. So most people with anxiety are driving with their S, not their N. Or their N is not functioning, malfunctioning, or dysfunctioning, okay? Okay, if you're depressed, you're very SI, you're stuck only in the past, so the present can't possibly get any better because I'm stuck in the past. Life sucks, and it's just going to keep sucking. I'm serious. Isn't that kind of what happens with the depression, right? I don't see a way out of this. That's all being stuck in SI, okay?
Okay. All right. Thank
So that's
you.
a dysfunctioning SI. I'm not saying that's a good part of SI. I'm saying if you have a dysfunctioning SI, you get stuck in the past, all right? So my daughter broke her arm at a feast, okay, many years ago. And a year or two later, she's on free day, she's at a play place with other children, and I get a phone call. She fell down, and she got hurt. She didn't break anything, but she fell down. And so I'm like, is she okay? Anything broken? My wife immediately SI'd to the moment uh-oh. She literally was reliving the broken arm, okay? That's the SI response. The NE response was, she all right? Because certainly all right's a possibility. Broken arm was a possibility. Lots of things in between are a possibility, okay? But she immediately was right there reliving, thinking she broke her arm again, okay? Because the past is always being used to understand the present in an SI. Or not always, but more often than not. If you're very dominant in your SI, you're filtering the present through what you already experienced. And then does that too, only from the idea of filtering and saying, these are possibilities of what it could mean, not this is what it means. So I don't tend to relive things. Okay, my S is not that strong. The SI is not that strong to have me relive things. Okay? Which is where I guess, again, I bet you if we did a study, a lot of people with bad PTSD also have a maybe stronger SI. All right? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Rabbi. That if I may make a comment on what you literally just said, that's probably why when I took the test, I asked for the breakdown, the percentage of mine, and it said I was 45-55 for the S and the N. So that's
Right.
probably why.
Right. Now, by the way, if you're 45, 55, it means that you may have either the sub or the unconscious of the other letter, right, active pretty strong, even though it's not in your ego pretty strong. It is. Okay? Because like I said, Rebbetzin doesn't have SE at all in her 4 letters, but she's really strong SE. That's coming from her shadow, okay, from her unconscious. All right, go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure I'm receiving this correctly, so I'm not going off in a different direction. But did you say, because we should have all 8, I don't know what to call it, personalities or letters or whatever have you. Should we have functions? Thank you. Should we have all 8 functions?
All 8 should be functioning optimally.
Okay. And with that, then I wanted to ask, do we want to concentrate on either the driver or any of those, or do we want to concentrate on all 4 to try to make them balance? I just want to make sure I heard you correctly.
You don't need to concentrate on your dominant. You do that automatically. You may want to make sure it's not malfunctioning from time to time. Okay? Because remember, like I said there, for example, if you're intuitive, you could be so not in the moment that you need to work on making sure that that doesn't happen so much. You got to work on your dominant. How do you work on your dominant to balance it out? You work on the opposite by strengthening your SC so you can be in the moment. Okay. So it's about figuring out what do you need to balance things out that's weak. All right?
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
I mean, if you're trying to systematize and structure, you need your TE working, but TE is not in your mix. That's something you need to develop and strengthen for the times when you need to do that. You don't always need to do that, but sometimes you do. Okay?
Okay.
All right?
Okay, perfect. The reason why I was asking is because underneath dominance from my percentage, it looks like, according to my test, that it was subconscious was right underneath it. So they were really close together. That's why I was wondering, because I feel like I stay in my subconscious a lot more than my driver's seat.
All right, we'll just have to see, make sure if your subconscious is, remember, that's the way I go sideways, and unconscious is down below, and we'd have to see what that looks like for your letters, okay? But yes, remember, if you're sub-connected, if your subconscious connected, same functions, different seats, okay? You don't have all 8, you have only 4, okay? You're just rotating the position of the same 4. All right?
Thank you for that, Rabbi. I appreciate it.
All right, so I'm NETIFESI. My sub is SIFETINE. Okay, so it's the same ones, ISFJ and ENTP. They're just reversed. Still only the same 4. All right, just rotating spots. All right, Mr. Robillard.
All right, shalom, Rabbi.
Shalom.
This has been very interesting.
Well, good. Interesting and confusing.
Yes, extremely confusing. I did the test during the lunch, and I came up with ENTP, but I don't see where you and I have much similarities in anything. And most of the stuff I had was like halfway, was like pretty much even. Like my feeling, thinking is 50-50. My intuitive and sensing, intuitive is 56, sensing is 44, perceiving is 58, judging is 42.
Right.
The only thing that was great is extrovert, which is 85.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I still.
And the extrovert being strong simply means that you will have a dominant E. Whatever's going to be dominant will be an E, okay?
But
all right. So, but here's the thing. All right, again, these tests are only as good as the test. Okay, different tests are, may come up with a more accurate understanding of you, but be less accurate for, say, me or something like that, right? Because it's only able to test whatever it's looking to test. And mostly it's looking to test the normal 4-letter code. EI, N or S, T or F, and J or P. That's it. And so you and I are going to look very different based on how much you use the other 4, okay? Because there are 8. The test is only giving you 4. It's really only giving you 2, and it's inferring the other 2. But the test is really only looking for your top 2, right? Because it's an ENTP doesn't mention S or F anywhere, okay? It's only got 2 of the 4. 2 of the 8, really. It's only got a quarter of it, all right? So, that's why these tests I don't think are as useful as they could be, because, again, if you read and understand, I watched 5 million videos of NE versus NI, TE versus TI, SE versus SI, so I could understand J versus P, E versus I, and hear all these different opinions on what's different, what differentiates them, right? So I could really understand. The funny thing is, the two that I found the hardest to find any real good videos on and books on to explain was, except this one that I got with the last one, was on understanding NI, okay, and understanding TE. Those are like stuff that was just, these people just could not explain them very well, all right? And so, I mean, some of them wanted to make NI sound like the mystic, the guru. No, that's not what it is, okay? It just looks like NIs have some sort of weird insight because they take a bunch of stuff and find all the connecting points that you might not be able to see and make it make sense into taking all these branches and making it into one root, right? So we're going to start with an upside-down tree and put it all together into a root. And so most people think, how'd you do that? I do a lot of things like that. And people are like, how did you put that together? NI, okay? But how did I do that? I started off with NE. I gathered a ton of stuff. See, I don't think that the test really makes it clear that to NI, you have to NE first. You need a ton of data. So either somehow a data got thrown at you, like let's say you're at work and your boss gives you a whole bunch of data, you're trying to figure out what it all means and where it all connects. Well, now you're going to NI and try to figure it out, right? And so there's a reason why, and I'm glad you came up, because I want anybody ENTP to come up and say, I'm different than you, but we have the same letters. And there's reasons. It's because how do those 4 letters interact? And what about the other 4? Okay? I mean, I'm very NE and NI. Maybe you're only one side of that more than, not as much as I am. Maybe I'm not as much as you are in 2 of the letters, you know, some of the polarities also. It's that balance that makes us different, right? Okay?
Okay.
All right. How much is malfunctioning, dysfunctioning, and non-functioning? That's what makes us different.
Okay. Now, how do I get the other 4 parts?
All right. Well, first you're going to have to do enough of a study to figure out what your sub. Okay, for you the sub would be ISFJ. Okay. Your unconscious is the INTJ. Okay. Just flip the outside letters, and your superego is the ESFP. All right. And just look at them and just see where your strengths and weaknesses are. But just once you understand, you're reading, okay, all of you guys started reading stuff. John was listening when he was, Conabear talked about that, and said, I looked at the ones that sounded like me. Good. Now go back and do the opposite. Find the ones that don't sound like you and figure out how to develop that.
Okay.
Because you need it. Okay?
All right.
That's how you do it. Okay? Rachel.
I'm using the excuse of no line to come up twice. So I was trying to work on...
We have almost 2 hours left. There's plenty of time for anybody to ask more questions.
I was trying to work on a decision-making model based off of what you covered. So can I read it and you give me your feedback on it?
Sure.
Okay. So, and this I somewhat tailored for what I have to consider that aren't my stronger points. Gather new data from the present as well as the past. Listen to the analysis of qualified others as well as my own. Consider how I or others will feel. Come up with multiple options, but choose based on the importance of the various data points and the likely result.
I like that a lot. I would only add that there's another piece of it from the top, which is decide if there's not enough information. Okay? Because you were basing it on having enough information. Your answer may be not enough information yet, right? You may NE it a little bit more, gather more information. Okay, so listen, I'll put it on the board. Dun, dun, dun. So this was my functional stack, but I'll go through it the way she did, okay? So she started off with SE and SI, right? What's going on? What's the data I have? How do I have any reference? Do I have any reference points from the past as far as the information that I have? Okay? How do I feel about it? Balanced by making sure that I'm using some logic and thinking about it, right? So T and F, okay? Do I need to and make sure I'm gauging how I feel and everybody else out there feels? Because you know what you do may affect the group. The group may be real upset with you, and you may want to avoid that. You may not care, because maybe it's a situation where you shouldn't care. Sometimes you should, okay? Same thing with your thinking. Where's the logic, the reason, the structure, the process that needs to be done here? Because feelings are not really about any of that. I just feel. I like it, I don't like it. It's good, it's bad, right? Then I'm going to go ahead and decide what the most reasonable, feels right decision is based on the data, or I'll realize I need more data, okay? That's NI, which is where you have a decision, or NE, where I need to go out and get more, okay? Is that about what you said? Is that about right?
I was accounting for the fact that I'll probably go straight to one and not, because I don't do any very well, so
Right.
I don't go for the multiple options, so I will tend to get locked into one.
Which is why you said make the best decision with the available information you can, okay? I want all of you out there that are strongly S more than N, always remember you may need more information. This is where we get into all kinds of problems doing Olympic conclusion jumping. It's not that conclusion jumping is a problem. I jump to conclusions all the time, but after I've got tons of data, thought it through, checked my feelings on it, did all this other stuff, and then I'll get to a conclusion, right? And maybe I take longer than I should about the conclusion because I'm so N and not very much S. So it's, I'm not very J either, so I'm not really concerned with that, all right? But the J is like, I want to get a decision now. And the N's like, eventually. Okay? So my daughter's learned how to interpret my language when it comes to those things. So she'll say, Dad, can we do this later? And I'll say, we'll see. And she says, oh, that means no. I didn't know that till she said that to me, but that's my not wanting to actually block it out as a no, but it really does mean no. If I say maybe, it means maybe. If I say we'll see, it's my not really wanting to commit to no, but it probably is no, right? So we have this in our language, all right? Of course, more S, more J, I would have just said yes or no. But if you ask me things often enough, it will just be, I haven't decided yet, I'm not there yet, we're doing, whatever it is, a decision needs to be made, but I'm not ready. Why am I not ready? Because first of all, if I do that, I've now cut off other things, other possibilities, and what if I want to change my mind or do something else? I lose the flexibility and the options, okay? NE wants as many options as possible, all right? So my wife was like almost worn out listening to me. She was in the other room, but she could hear me playing video after video of just NE and NI, or TE and TI, whatever I was trying to figure out. Video after video after, she's like, oh my gosh, isn't that overwhelming overload? No, I haven't gotten the answer yet. I'm still trying to now NI it all and try to piece it together and say, what pieces of this is actually what me, TI, internally in my logic think is right? Okay, what works and makes sense logically to me? That's how I did it, right? And so, but others will be like, just the first hour of this earlier today probably wore out some of you guys who are more S and J. Like, oh my gosh, I'm in overload here, okay? Which is why, even though I explained it so simply many times, you had already shut down. The brain just was like, overload. We're going to sleep now. Okay, your turn. And what was your first name again?
Lacey.
No, put it up.
Oh, Lacey, sorry.
Okay, Lacey. All right, go ahead.
Okay, I have ISTJ from the test that I took a while back.
And how do you feel about that?
I'm still trying to figure out.
That wasn't a joke. I'm serious. When people come up and tell me I was ISTJ, I want to know.
I feel pretty good about
well,
it.
what do you think of it? Do you think it matches?
In a lot of things it does. I'm just still trying to figure out if it's, because I think I put it backwards. The J.
SITE. You're IJ. So just read it in order.
SITEFINE, right?
Yeah.
So I did do it right.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, here. Just so everybody can get more examples so we can see this. All right. ISTJ. I gave you the little secret. IJ is in this order, right? The J gets here. Okay.
Right.
I is dominant, so it's SITE, FINE. All right. ISTJ. Or you prefer the car. Okay.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
All right.
But yeah, I think I had it right. And yeah, just from the explaining it made me kind of like, because I do kind of get like really judgmental and I think about everything and I am the, the too many options and then just blah, I'm just stuck. So, but they all sound good. So would that be a perceiving or judging, or is that going?
No, but see,
that goes
SI.
with the SI,
Right. SI is going to get overwhelmed with too many options.
right?
Because SI goes, I already experienced all this stuff, and all these things are not matching that, so it's too much. I don't know what to do with it.
Right, but
Where if you were NE, you'd be like, too many options? What's that mean? What's too many options? You know?
right, but I feel like I'm more connected on my shadow side because, like you said about like Rabbits and Julie, you do go in. I do go into things with like, okay, I know how the experience goes, but when I see new things, I want to experience the new things, but I still have in the back of my mind, how my experience has been in the past going forward. I just try to block that and just go forward
All right, so
without that bias.
That's your shadow.
Right.
Okay? SETIFENI.
Right. Okay. I think I had it about right then.
Okay? So if you want to know your shadow, take your ego stack and just write it again and flip the polarities.
Right. And so the sub would be just that in the opposite order.
It would be just flip this stack this way.
Right. And then the super is the
Just
shadow.
take this stack and flip it the other way.
Right. Okay.
Okay?
That
The super
would
ego
be-
is the flip of the shadow, and the subs is a flip of the ego. Okay?
Right. So
Just
then-
reverse the order.
Right. And so then the shadow would be just the same letters, just the opposite sub letter.
Right. If you just reverse the order. If you're going to go to super ego from
No, in the shadow.
oh, the
the
shadow
shadow.
is just exactly what I did there.
So that
Same
would be
letter,
the-
different polarity.
That would be like the balance, like perfect balance.
No,
Or the-
no.
Kind of like all of it.
No,
perfect
that just
balance?
has all of them in the same seats balanced.
Right.
It still means that your N is not very good, and your
Yeah.
F. This stuff is still weak because it's both on the bottom.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go over here. Right. Okay, so they're in the same order. So this is still your strongest stuff in both directions.
Okay.
Okay, this is your ego, and this is your unconscious. We'll put a U there, right? Okay.
Right. Or the shadow. Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds about right because I am a sensing and thinking, and a lot of people tell me I don't have any feelings. So it makes sense. I think
No, wait. They tell you don't have any feelings. You know why? Because your feelings are quietly kept inside of you most of the time.
Right. And
Okay.
I do tend to like put the thinking and the sensing outward, especially the thinking
Yep.
is
Okay.
absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. Look, let me be clear about something, okay, as it keeps coming up. There is no ideal like matching your ego with the shadow or ego with the sub. You need all four. In other words, you need all traits in all positions. You need to be strong at everything, okay? And that's the only way to be truly balanced. So if you are sub-connected, you have the same direction, but you have the seats reversed. So what's weakest in the ego is strongest in the sub, okay? But if you're unconscious connected, then what's strongest in one is still strongest in the other one, just the other polarity. And then when you go to the superego, okay, it's still the other polarity, but now you've got to reverse. And now the weak is strong and the strong is weak. But you need to kind of have all four, all right? All right, Deirdre.
Shalom, Rabbi. So when I took the test, I was assigned a fifth letter. And
The T and
the T and the A, yeah.
forget
No,
that, that's
forget
dumb.
about them? Okay. Can you say why that happened in the first place?
I don't know anything
No?
about it. I know they added it. I know one is turbulent, the other is
Assertive.
Assertive, right?
Yeah.
They're just trying to add more stuff because instead of doing what they should do, which is understand the other three minds, they're trying to add other things that answer the why. Why? See, Meyers-Briggs gets attacked all the time because it's got issues. Okay? And so they're trying to handle the issues by adding another element to it instead of just dealing with what they have.
Okay.
Okay, so they said, oh, we'll add turbulent and we'll add assertive. I don't think that helps anything, really.
Okay, so just ignore that then.
I would ignore it, and I haven't studied it, but I'm saying I would ignore it because I don't think it helps you with the actual problem, which is cognitive function. It starts with Carl Jung. He gave you 4 of them, and he told you how they're expressed either introvertedly or extrovertedly. So that's 8 of them. That's what we're dealing with. Now, Meyers-Briggs tried to give you a way of coding it so that you know which is which.
Okay.
And then to give it even more clarity, quote unquote, in their mind, they added this A and the T. I haven't studied it, so I really don't know enough about it.
Okay. Then just a question. You mentioned the dominant, and then the shadow is the reverse of what your dominant is.
No.
Oh, sorry, I got that.
Dominant is positions in the stack. Okay. Ego versus
Ego.
unconscious.
That's what I
right?
meant.
Yeah.
Okay. So then
Ego is your default. Think of what a shadow is. It's a reflection of you.
Okay.
So it's the same seats, but your shadow of it. So if you're E, you become I, you become E, right? Whatever it is, except after sometimes Y or whatever it is. Okay, so except after C, and then it's E and then I or whatever it is. Okay, so if you're NE, it becomes NI. It's still N. So it's your shadow.
Okay.
Your subconscious is your opposite. Okay? So it just flips everything from your strength is your weakness is your strength, so to speak, okay? But dominant is the first seat. It's the driver, the hero, or the dominant. Those are 3 ways that they usually refer to it, right?
Okay. So I know very little about what Carl Jung said about shadow work, but could strengthening your shadow be like considered a correct definition of what shadow work is?
I mean, I don't know that I would label it anything but that. I don't know what people call shadow work, okay? That's a whole different sort of problem.
That's why I want
But
clarification.
if you're working on developing your shadow or your unconscious, then that is shadow work. Not the way classically, just like, By the way, if you really want to be confused, go read Carl Jung's book on cognitive functions, and you will really be confused.
Right.
He uses all kinds of just psychology language and language from his day. Right, he wrote it in the 20s. Okay, it's 100 years ago.
Right.
All right, and
Well, because I've only heard the stuff that just sounds like really like so like far out, like we can't like do it because of the walk that we're on. So I wanted to like clarify to see if that was a correct way to do it, like in terms of just knowing, like strengthening the opposite sides, a side that is not as strong.
Right, and also what you're not going to find. Every one of these wants to be popular, so they're only going to tell you what makes your 4 letters wonderful.
Right.
And they are. Every 4-letter combination, all 16 of them are wonderful. But they're also not so wonderful in certain situations. Okay? Certain situations, it's better to be an ISFJ than an ENTP. 2 opposite type of things. So, it's just like sometimes it's better to be blue or better to be red or better to be white, better to be yellow. It just depends on the situation, right? So they're not focusing enough on that. There was one guy... A couple of these guys do this. They'll do like ranking the 16 personalities in terms of this, that, or the other thing, or which is the best personality. This one guy had these things. He was just taping the personalities on a wall and moving around. So first he wanted, for whatever reason, he wanted to mess with the ENTPs, put us at the bottom, Of course, we ended up on top at the end, so it's okay. Not until the very last 3 seconds of the video, though. But, you can understand bias can be in these things. This one guy I was listening to, his mother was a strong, annoying, blue ISFJ. And he did not say anything nice about ISFJs. Okay? Which I didn't think was very fair of him to do that, but he had a bias. Okay, and he was an ENTP who really didn't like... I love my ISFJ. Okay, that's my darling. That's my sweetheart. Okay? But he did not like his. And it comes through when he teaches, okay? So you got to understand, everybody's going to have some sort of bias. Now, being an NT, I'm trying to have 0 bias. I'm trying to just give you the logical, straight extrapolation of the information, condensing it into something that should work for everybody, okay? As best I can, right? I don't have any feelings involved, all right? Because feelings is on my lower end of the spectrum, right? It's my 3rd or 4th one. I mean, my 3rd one on most of the way you look at it. It's either 2nd or 3rd, depending on ego or subconscious, unconscious, that kind of thing. But still, I'm driving with N and T. What else you got?
I think that's it. I just wanted to make sure that I was like getting the correct understanding of what like shadow work is.
Yeah, I don't know what, when people talk about shadow work, that sounds much more into realms I don't want to go.
Exactly, which is why
Okay.
I wanted that clarification.
But if you are working on your ego, because you want to fix your, strengthen your lower ones, that's ego work, I suppose. You're working on your subconscious, that's subconscious work. So it could be shadow work or unconscious work. Of course, unconscious work sounds like you're doing it when you're unconscious.
Yeah, when you're sleeping.
But, it's just working on that. Call it the 4 brains, all right? These are like
Okay.
4 personalities that you have, okay?
Okay, thank you so much. I
You're
appreciate it.
welcome. All right, Mr. Bohe.
Greetings, Rabbi.
Greetings, Rick.
All right, like in the color codes, they are so we understand, or we get to know ourselves so we can understand others better.
Right.
And this is what Meyers-Briggs is also, so we can understand others better, correct?
Everything's about that. And I started off with that. You might not have been in the room.
Okay.
Okay, I started off with that earlier today. That the whole point of these exercises, okay, is about understanding yourself so that you can understand others better. All right?
Right on. So I did the 16 personalities test and came up with the ISTP. And then I read all the literature that came along with it, and it, from my perspective, it described me quite well, I thought.
Well, and they will catch most people. I mean, that's why they come up with these things, right? Because it'll match most people. All right, go ahead.
And it also gave me a list of things I needed to work on to strengthen myself. My question, I guess, is Millie took the test, and she's a ISTJ. And we read all that, and it really didn't describe her today, but I assumed that maybe that's who she was earlier in life, and due to life, it kind of squashed those qualities, but I don't know. So I guess that's what I'm asking, is it? But you also said that these tests are who we are right now, not necessarily who we were 30, 40 years ago.
Well, no, I mean, yes, but I mean, it's not who you are now. It's a guess at who you are now. Right?
Yes.
That's why I say that's why I didn't give you guys tests. When we did the color code, I gave everybody the test. We handed it out when you guys checked in, right? This time, I didn't give you the test. As a matter of fact, Marlene said, hey, do you want me to put the test together? And so I said, no, I don't want him to do the test. Well, I mean, you're fine to do it, but I'm saying I'm not wanting to launch off of like this thing coming from that test. Whatever version of the test I grabbed and decided to run you guys through, okay? All right? So like, this is you guys, right? Okay,
Yes,
so you are an ISTP, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so P means this is the E, so that would be TI. The I drives, so you're TI, right? SE, NIFE. All right, now, so Millie is the ISTJ, right?
Yes, sir.
So the J gets the E, the I drives. All right, so she's SITE. You notice that everything is not even matched, right?
Correct.
You guys are opposites here. All we did was change the P to a J. Okay? FINE. Okay? So NE, NI, FIFE, TETI, SI, and SE. So you guys really have things from a perspective-wise very different. Kind of like me and my wife, except that my wife and I, because we are subconsciouses of each other, we have the same letter combinations, just in different seats. You've got things more like from an unconscious point of view, not exactly, because your unconscious really would be an ESTP, an ESTJ, so it would be really a little bit different. But still, it's there that there's opposites, right? Okay, you have opposites. Okay, your sensing is different, your thinking is different, your feeling is different, your intuition is different. Okay, but now you're telling me that this is wrong. That's not right. So how do you fix that? You look at the descriptions like I gave you guys, and you see what matches in the description. What really does describe her? Experiencing or intuition, right? S or N. Thinking or feeling. Okay, which of those, which one really goes? Is it thinking or feeling? And then if it's thinking or feeling, is it internally feeling or external? Being more with the external thing that's going on feeling-wise. Okay, how is it expressed? Do you keep your feelings to yourself, or is it like you wear it on your sleeve? Okay, and FE wears it on its sleeve. The FI, you may not know what they're feeling. Okay? And so there's different things that you need to understand. TI, all right? I might not tell you everything I'm thinking and putting together, and you guys think, oh, man, you'd say a lot out loud. There's a lot I don't. Okay? What do I say out loud? The stuff that I want feedback about. Because if I say it out loud, you'll respond. Did I get a positive response, a negative response? Did I get questions? Did I get some sort of feedback? I'm looking for NE, data, right? So I want to hear what your S information is for me, what your experience is, what your information is. All right, Maisie.
Shalom, Rabbi.
Shalom.
So originally when I took the test, it said I was an ESTP, and that didn't sit well with me, that S. I was like, nah, that's not me. Because right now I'm dealing with a situation where I'm just exploring all the possibilities of what I can possibly do to change the outlook of my future self and how I look on the outside.
All right, well, hold on a second. So I want everybody to hear that. When you're looking at whatever letters a test gave you, does any part of the answer not sit right with you? It could be that because there's other things going on. It also could be, I'm not saying that's the case here, that your situation in life right now is requiring you to be more. Okay, I'm not saying that's your situation necessarily, but some of you might think, well, right now, I'm being very whatever the other letter is, whether it came up with F and now you're T, or T and now you're F, or N and now you're S, or whatever. The life situation may have forced you to focus more in that way. But what are you most of the time under normal circumstances, right? And so if you're thinking you're more intuitive than sensing, okay, I like that people are noticing, I took the test and something just didn't sit right with me. And it can't be I just didn't like the outcome. No. It just didn't match me, okay?
I just retook it, and it's ENTP.
There you go.
It's like, S. That's not me. Because, yeah.
Right, and there are some of you out there that if you got the N, you'd be like, that's not me, I'm S, right? Okay? There's nothing's better or worse or whatever, it just is what it is, right?
Yeah, because for me, the present and the here and now was not sitting well with me, and using the five senses, and, I have that TI thing too, where I say just enough for the feedback. I'm not fully exposing what I may be thinking internally, but yeah, that was crazy that it can go that way, depending on how you answer those questions too.
Right. Also, by the way, TI is not necessarily, this isn't about for you, unless you have more. You have more?
No,
okay, good. Okay, so TI doesn't necessarily keep everything to themselves, okay? TI is more about, I'm going to measure everything against my internal reasoning and logic, okay? So when I hear labels like sensation, harmony, exploration, all these things that the personality hackers gave, and they're not terrible labels, they just didn't make sense to me in my internal logic. Because I want something from an NI point of view that actually works simply across the board. And also when you hear the word, you'll understand the right thing. Because if I said exploration for NE, you might think of more SE. Because SEs actually go out and do more traditional exploration than an NE does. An NE is more about ideas, possibilities, concepts, right? So we do explore those things, but I wouldn't have used the idea of exploring, okay? I would use things like ideating, okay? Ideation, dealing with ideas. Whereas I think of SEs as the ones that go out there and want to explore and enjoy and experience everything. But then experiencing is the best word, in my opinion, because S is experience, okay? It's about their experiences they already had or the one they're having now and what they're looking forward to having. It's all about experiences. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, Greg.
Hi, Rabbi.
Do I need to coin up here?
We got it.
All right, we're good.
Shalom.
Yeah, okay.
The driver model, the car model with the
Right.
4 quadrants.
Right.
First question, could you, as far as the color code, could you put your dominant color, secondary, third, and last
I can't fix
color?
that now.
Would it work in that quadrant type of thing?
Okay. Sorry, Elder was pointing out that I have hair flying certain ways, or whatever, and I can't fix it from here. I can't even see it in the screen. All right, look, I don't know yet the relationship between the colors and the 4 letters and the different personalities, 16 personalities. I mean, I see mostly ISFJs are blue, for example. ENTPs would be red, for that kind of example. I don't know that then, if I could look at, so if you're looking at me, red ENTP, my sub would be blue ISFJ. I don't know if there's a white and a yellow in the other 2 or how that would work. So I'm not so sure. I think, though, you might be able to figure out, at least from a default, from your ego, there may be a color related to certain 4-letter combinations, okay? That may be. By the way, there's other things out there that we could add to the mix. Like there's the Enneagram, and there's all kinds of other things we could add. All right? Don't start with that one. We'll do that maybe another year. Okay? But there's all kinds of ways to look at what makes us the way we are. Okay? And they look at different aspects of us, right? These letters are not dealing with. This is why, okay, I didn't say this earlier, but I'm going to explain it now. One of the reasons why I don't like most of the people out there touting Meyers-Briggs is that they try to use 4 letters about information and what we do with it to describe what drives you, to describe things that colors describe, okay? They try to make one thing do all. See, and that you're not getting that from the colors like the red and the blue and the white and the yellow, okay? You're not getting everything about information. Okay, now I can see some of my hair from the fan is blowing on my hair. Hold on. There we go. Now, is that better, Elder? We good? All right. So, you know what I'm saying? They want to make these things that are specific and limited do everything. And they're not designed to, okay? The colors were only designed to talk about what is your driving motivation. Okay, red is results. Blue is intimacy or relationship. Yellow is fun. White is peace. Simple. I mean, there's a little more nuance in that, but that's simple. It's your driver, okay? But then, how do I gather information as a red? I don't know. How do I make decisions about information as a red? I don't know. I mean, the color doesn't give us that, and it's not supposed to. Same thing the other way around. When you look at people talk about ENTP and ISTP and ENTJ and ISFJ and all these other things, they want to say, this person has this driver, and they act this way, and they behave this way, and maybe they do, and maybe they don't, but what does it have to do with the letters? The letters aren't telling you that necessarily. The letters are about cognitive functions, and cognitive functions, as I defined it at the beginning, has to do with how we deal with information. I'll read it to you again, right? Cognitive functions are processes. Or processes are the mental activities of the mind involved in acquiring, processing, storing, and using information. Nothing in there about what motivates you and drives you, okay? Which is why it's helpful to do something like the colors and this as well, okay? And if we add something else, it'll be addressing another aspect of us that these two don't directly cover, all right? Anything else?
And with the colors, there's the positive attributes and the negative attributes.
Same thing with
of
the
each. Right. So when I looked at that car model, would it be, in a way, it seems like, because you said sometimes the driver isn't driving correctly, possibly, or maybe too strongly in one way. So is it sort of a good way to look at it, like the center, as in like in the crosshairs, if you could figure out how to positively each position, utilize it correctly, then your target, as a manner of speaking, would be something central to those that's pulling equally balanced in a way?
Right. Let me kind of draw it out, sort of what you're trying to say here. Look, if we're using the car model, this is 2 adults in the front seat, theoretically. So in other words, when the driver is not behaving right, maybe it's not as mature in the function, even though it's dominant. You use it all the time. But assuming that it's mature, if it starts to act a little weird, you have a co-pilot that's supposed to balance it. Okay? So I have some logic and reason to say, whoa, you're getting so way out there and extrapolating and intuiting. Let's bring you back down to earth. Okay? So this is the NTP. Right? This is me again, just to make it something I'm familiar with so it's easier for me to talk about, right? But then you have a 10-year-old and a 3-year-old. What is that symbolizing? Less mature. All right, 10-year-olds actually understand some things on an adult level. They can handle certain concepts that we can share with a 10-year-old, and they'll actually get it and they'll understand it, right? Okay, and 3-year-olds, much less so. Okay? And so that's where we're going to get a little bit more dysfunction, malfunction, or really not functioning. Okay, especially with the 3-year-old. But there'll be aspects of the 10-year-old that they're just not able to do. Okay? So if this isn't helping this way, your second one is supposed to be your auxiliary or your co-pilot helping balance the driver. Your driver can get you into a rut, into a ditch. And drive you right into a pole. Okay? All right? Because if I'm NEing and just going all out there, whatever, okay, we could just as easily make this, let's make this an SE. Okay? Well, okay, let's just make that an SE. I could be just in the moment, so in the moment that I've forgotten about everything else I'm supposed to be doing. Okay? So I need something to balance out that SE. It could be a TI, it could be an FI, something that's going to help balance me back. Okay? The same thing if you put a T or an F here and an S or an N here. It's part of bringing some balance to these things, right? Okay? So, of course, if the balance is not functioning right, which is what we talked about, you could get into a, they call it a loop here. You can get stuck in a loop where you're just going this way, and the thing to balance you is just not even in there. You're all emotionally in the moment, and you're stuck. Okay? Now what? Okay? So you need to have some help snapping out of it from one of these two. Okay? The 3-year-old might throw a fit and say, hey, we got stuff going on here in the future here. We got to, whatever. The 3-year-old can start crying and screaming. The co-pilot say, hey, excuse me, hello. You're about to go off into a ditch. You just missed the exit. All right? So no, that's not an ENTP anymore. That's now an ESTP. Okay? All right? So, all right? All right, anybody else? Mr. Rick's back. And don't worry, we still have plenty of time for you guys online.
If you had, I know you're adept at this stuff, had you given, could you tell by our little interactions and so forth what personality those letters were for me? Would you have guessed that?
Okay. I'm very adept, if I know you well enough, at your colors, okay? Because I can see what drives you. Mm-hmm. I've also been doing the color thing for 25, 7, whatever years. Mm-hmm. Okay, probably 27 since when I first got married. My wife and I did it back then. So, I'm very, very familiar with that, and I can read people's colors pretty quickly if I spend enough time with them, right? The letters is a little bit different. I wouldn't necessarily come up with your 4-letter code. I could maybe come up with, if you are driving, with thinking, feeling, sensing, or intuition. I mean, I might see that, okay, and be able to come up with that. Or if we start talking, like when my daughter and I were discussing her letters and her husband's letters, and we were coming up with their behavior styles and how they handle different things with information, behavior regarding information, okay, not just behavior in general. We could see where the S, okay, my daughter, again, is very SE. Her husband's very SE, okay? So we have that kind of thing that we observed, okay? Elder, my hair better now? Okay. Got the it was like, looked like alfalfa with like a problem. All right, so anyway, you guys who are too young didn't know what that was. Okay, never mind. You guys understood it very well. That's because you're old. Okay. I couldn't help that. All right, now. See, now that wasn't a letter thing. You know what that was? That was a red, yellow, wise guy sarcasm. Okay? Because that's what red, yellow humor looks like. Okay, now. So no, I can't do that, Rick, necessarily, but I haven't really made attempts to do that because it's a newer thing for me to be studying for a shorter period of time. So as intensely as I've studied this and as broadly I've studied it, I've only been doing it that level for about a year to about 2 years, okay? Where I have 27 years of the colors, all right?
All right. Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome. However, if anybody were to sit with me in a council session and wanted me to kind of ask questions about how do you handle this and what do you do with that and how do you deal with this kind of information this way, whatever, we could probably figure it out, okay? Okay, because having somebody help you in typing yourself, calling what type, what the letters are, can be very helpful if that person knows and understands the letters and the functions. All right, live stream, your turn.
All right. The first one is from Donna Stevens, and it's kind of going to go along with Lacey's ISTJ. She's asking for explanation. She's a 51% I, 55% S, 74% T, and 85% J.
Okay, let's see. And Donna's in New Zealand. All right, so let's see. 51% I, 55% T. All right, look. I'm not going to be able to tell you anything just because you tell me your percentages. What I will tell you is that your percentages might help you understand why you're not really sure if they're close, why you're, like if you're a 51% I, you may wonder that you feel like an E sometimes, okay, with things as far as what's driving. Remember, the I just tells you, or the E just tells you which is driving, the I or the E, right? The 55% S, you might feel quite intuitive a lot of the time. That's not a very large, dominant percentage of your sensing, okay? Thinking, you probably do that a whole lot more than feeling, and J, a whole lot more than P, because you have higher percentages there, all right? Okay, so can I please explain ISTJ? Sure, we'll go up on the board here and explain it. But as far as the percentages, that's got to be much more subjective, because remember, you could be very highly something, but not be necessarily that functional completely just because you have a high percentage. It just means that that's the dominant thing that you do. You may not do it very well, but you do it a lot, if that makes any sense, right? It's the thing that you default to and do, okay? The effectiveness of it is very subjective. How good you are at it, how effective you are at it. Okay, what did she say she was? ISTJ. I think we just had one of those. All right, so ISTJ, all right? So with the ISTJ, the J letter gets the E, that makes that SI, right? The I drives, so it's SI, TE, FI, and E, okay? From the cars, okay, that's your car model, all right? That's your ISTJ, okay? So you're driving with SI, which is introverted sensing, which means that you generally expect life to be as you've already experienced it, okay? And if you're experiencing something, you're going to, not necessarily consciously, possibly consciously though, you might search your memories to go, how did we handle this last time? How did it go? Did it go well? Did it go poorly? And things are going to be reference points from your past. You're going to reference point from the past to understand the present, okay? That's your SI. TE, that's going to be thinking from more the idea of organizing, structuring, whatever else. TE is not one of the ones that I'm that well versed in. I'm TI, so I'm not as well versed in that. It's in the papers that you'll have. It's what go back and listen to what I described TE as, okay? So that would be your, so SIs and TE go really well together because SIs with the J are going to want to be organized. They're going to want to be detail-oriented. They're going to want to be dealing with stuff because if you see, to have things be where they're supposed to be, you have to put them there in the first place. That's why SIs and TEs tend to be much more structured and organized and that kind of thing, because then they know where to find and what it is. Now, what SIs and TEs don't understand is that us crazy NEs know exactly where everything is. It just doesn't look like it. It's in that pile over there. So, whatever. It'd probably be a lot easier if it was put in a better place. All right, now, actually, I did have a moment today as I was putting all these papers together for you guys where I literally ran out of surface space in my office. And I didn't know where to put the next pile of things because there was no surface uncluttered. When I get my new office, I'm creating lots of space and lots of storage. The reason everything, by the way, for you guys who don't understand why us NEs are cluttered and messed up with stuff on surfaces, it's because we don't have a place to put it. You might think we do, but we don't. Okay? If there was a place to put it, a proper place to put it that made sense, TI, made sense to me, logically, I would put it there. I ran out of storage space. It is what it is. All right. So that was it for Donna Stevens. Next.
All right, got another New Zealander from Michael, New Zealand. Rabbi, would the ideal version of me would be able to pull out the required letters/colors for the scenario I'm in at the time?
I want to change one word. Okay, this is me, again, using intuition as what's the better, more effective way to go. I would say to pull out the appropriate. Okay, not the required, because that's too subjective. Okay? I would rather be more subjective about the appropriate, okay? You might need to be white or yellow or red or blue. You might need to be more intuitive or sensing or thinking or feeling, extroverted or introverted. So I would say the ideal version of you is able to pull out the appropriate thing that you need, either for information or for driving. All right, what's driving you, okay? Motivating you. All right? But that would be correct for the situation you're dealing with at the time. By the way, that also includes situations that you're not dealing with at the time that you're planning for in the future. There's right colors and letters that are most effective in planning out, okay? All right, next.
Another one from Donna. Sometimes I can turn into a brick wall, especially if I feel something's not genuine. How would I show more emotion and compassion and not make them feel hammered?
Let's see, especially if I feel, okay? Notice that the people use language to tell you whether they're dealing with an F or a T. Because she could have said, sometimes I can turn into a brick wall, especially if I think something's not genuine. She said, if I feel something's not genuine. Okay, how do I show more emotion and compassion? So we're talking about what? FI struggling to FE. Okay? Because her FI feels something's not genuine. FI very much is about authenticity. As a matter of fact, I think that's one of the things that one of the groups calls FI is authenticity, okay? So your FI, Donna, is feeling, wait a minute, things are not very genuine. And when that's happening, you're having trouble showing the group need for a certain level of emotion and compassion, okay? Because that's where you would be then concerned with how the group is feeling and what's appropriate for the group, okay? All right, next.
All right, from Angie Stone. Will those, and we've got this from a couple people, asking if the papers will be made available for download online.
I already said that. I'm going to I will put this on the website. I said that this morning. Before I said I would print it for you guys, I made a decision during lunch to print it. So since I had leftover rabbi shake, and I drank that for lunch instead of going to lunch. So while you guys were at lunch, I was printing papers for you and working on tomorrow's Level Up class. Yes, I will be putting these PDFs. I got them now in PDF form. I'm going to give them to Tommy. We'll put them on the website, and I'll just figure out a place for it, okay, and we'll get it there.
All right, another one from Michael. So when I figure out my letters, the ego plus super ego combo is where I want to be.
I kind of started to say that at one point, then I changed my mind, NE, okay, because it didn't logically make sense to limit it to that, okay? I think you want to have all four working beautifully. I want to be NE, right? Okay, driving NETIFESI, but I also want to be SIFETINE, okay, which would be ISFJ. I want to be able to have that stack working for me. I also want the stack that's NITE FISE, okay, which is the unconscious. I also want to have the superego SEFIE, F-I-T-E-N-I. Okay? Wow, I just did that off the top of my head. I think I got it right. All right? But I want all of that functioning. And basically what I want is I want all 8 to be functioning well in the top 2 positions. Okay? I want NE and NI functioning well. I want SE and SI functioning well, TI and TE, and FI and FE. I want them all functioning well in the top 2 positions. And if I have all 4, okay, of those stacks, I have that. All right? Okay? So yes, I did sort of start to go in the direction of ego, superego, but changed my mind. Okay?
All right, from Annabelle. I had to take multiple personality tests when I was looking for a job, and all came back as ENTJ, commander, leader, and a lot of people say I come off mean and sometimes scary. Could you help me?
Yeah, you got a broken red. Okay? Maybe broken purple. All right? ENTJ, okay, I hate the titles, commander, leader, all these things. They want to give titles to all these things. If you go to 16 personalities, they got a title for everything. All right? Ugh, I don't like them. But let's go over here. ENTJ. Okay, so it's here, right? So what do we have? We have TE, NI, whoops, SE, whoops, SE, and FI. Okay? ENTJ. ENTJ. All right, so this is not a warm fuzzy. This is just about structuring, organizing, and making sure they're systematized, et cetera, okay? This is done internally as you're trying to take a bunch of stuff and make it into one simple thing. And so that could come across a little bit more cold. The reason I guess they go with commander is because this is a leading with the idea of organizing, structuring, systematizing, processing, whatever. Okay? I don't know if that's necessarily the commander. That's, I think, even often a mid-level management person. Okay? That's not necessarily the commander. I think the commander should have an N. Okay? Seeing out, projecting out. Lower level people could deal with now. I want to have the bigger vision. The ends are up there at 40,000 feet going, all right, let me see what this is doing. What's it going? What's going on here? Where's it headed? So we guide the future, okay? See, I don't like the title. All right. I shouldn't say I don't like it. My TI doesn't like it, right? It's not a feeling. It's a logic problem. It's a reasoning problem. It doesn't work for me, okay? So when it says I come off mean and scary, that's not this. This is not mean or scary. Okay, I told you, the letters don't do everything, but these people think they do. You can come off mean and scary if you've got a blue out happening, or especially if you're blue-purple, or if you've got some of the negatives of red. Red can be very harsh, cold, unfeeling, okay? And so you are either having a red or blue problem or some sort of purple problem. You're not doing this because of ENTJ. All right, next.
All right, from Danielle Copeland. Wouldn't everyone's ego and shadow be the opposite, making them balance in their dominant function and connected to all 8?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to make you balanced only in those 4 in that order. So you're going to get 8, but in the same order, right? So it's not really balanced in full. It's just balancing the ego to have both sides, right? So, whoops, what happened there? Oh, there we go. Okay, so for me, right, for ENTP, okay, NE, and then NETIFESI, okay? And then, let me put it here. Okay, then the shadow is INTJ, okay? Which is going to be an ITEFISE, all right? That doesn't do anything to balance this stuff out, okay? I got a lot of balance in my top 2, in my adults. You understand what I'm saying? Because I've got both halves of N and both halves of T. Where's my F and my S? They're still at the bottom, all right? So yes, the ego and the shadow being opposite do make more balance in their particular dominant, yes. In you personally and connecting all 8, no. All right? No, because these are still weak in both. Okay, my FIFE and SISE, those are still weak in both of them. All right? Hopefully that made some sense for everybody to understand that. Okay? If you're shadow connected, you're just really good at the same stuff that you are in your ego, but just both halves. All right? If you're sub-connected, you're only good at one half, okay, but all 4 of them somewhat equally because you can rotate them, right? Right? So with the sub, whoops, I should have left that, but that's okay. Okay, so the sub for this is ISFJ. Okay. All right. NETIFESI. All right. So it's all the same stuff, just rotating. So where I was not very good at SI here, that's my dominant here. I was great at NE here, it's my weak one here. The middle ones just switch a little bit, right? So if you're sub-connected, but you notice I'm still exactly the same 4-letter combination, so we only have half. All they're doing is changing seats in the car. They're just rotating seats. SI was the 3-year-old here, it's the driver here. NE was the driver here, 3-year-old here. All right? The co-pilot is TI, the co-pilot's FE. The 10-year-old's FE, the 10-year-old's FTI. So, I mean, we're just changing seats, all right? So that's not balanced. It may have balanced that part, so there is some balance there. It balanced that particular thing. Those 4 with those polarities are absolutely much more balanced in a sub-connection, okay? But where's the other half of it? The other half is unconscious and superego. So you only got half of it balanced, okay? When you go ego, unconscious or shadow, okay, you got all 8, but you only have them in one direction, so you still only have half of it, all right? I mean, one direct meaning that you only have them in that same stack, the same order. So what's strong is still strong, all right? So you have all 8 of them, but the strength is not balanced. In this case, the strength is balanced, but you only have half of them. All right, next.
All right, this is a 3-parter from Olivia, and you kind of addressed the numbers with Donna, so I'm going to try to condense it a little bit. She's talking about, she basically tested as an ESFJ. Her SN and FT were 1 off. And she didn't relate with the ESFJ videos, so she started looking at ENTJ and ENFJ. ENFJ sounded more like me, but the more videos I listened to, INFJ sounded more like me. If I look at the numbers, do they tell me more like I'm all J, I'm balanced SN, FT, and E being at 9 is more dominant, but I is at a 6, functions well?
All right, go back to the other screen. What was the one that she thought she sounded like? The I, was it INFJ? What did she?
So between the E and the I, she tested at a 9 and a 6.
No, I don't want to hear the numbers. I have a point to make. What was the last thing she said I switched?
She switched the E and the I because she tested out as an E, but she feel like she...
No, but where's that one? Okay, so INFJ sounded more like her. So let me just kind of play with that for a second, all right? All right, so NIFE, all right, TISE. Okay, so I'm thinking you're actually having somewhat of an SI reaction, really, to your test. So I was wondering how this is going to play out. Let me explain why. You took a test. You now have data that's history. It's in your memory. It happened, right? The test already happened. And even though you have admitted 3 times at least in this little texting that you did that these things didn't really work for you and didn't describe you well, you're still trying to hold on to making them work. That's illogical. Okay, you're not really actively using your TI in there anywhere, okay? So I don't know that that's actually your letters. So what you need to do, again, you guys, is stop locking in. I have this kind of argument with a few people that are really into this stuff. We debate because they can't let go of what they already know. Their SI is broken or pit bull, okay? So I would have stopped with, I found one I related to, which is that or that, and then when I listen to more videos, it didn't work for you. So then what difference does it make what numbers you got on the test? Okay? I didn't tell you to go take a test. I told you to listen to each of the functions and see what sounds like you. I didn't tell you not to take the test, but I certainly didn't tell you to take the test. And the reason I didn't want you to take the test is because you're going to get stuck if your T is problematic with your S, okay? You're not going to be able to intuit properly and look at other possibilities. You're trying to make that thing you have work. Well, I have these numbers. They have to work somehow. No, they don't. It's some dumb test you took. And I only say it's dumb because if it doesn't match you properly, it's dumb. And it's only going to match some people right, maybe the majority, but the majority just means over 50%, okay? It doesn't necessarily have to match you. Okay, so Olivia, okay, I can help you when we see you next time or whatever. We can work through this or whatever. Don't get locked onto your numbers, okay? If the test did not match you, throw it out. Don't worry about it. Does that help everybody a little bit? Okay, good. Next.
This one's also from Olivia. I'm good with images, so in the car, the 10-year-old and the 3-year-old are determined by being the opposite of the driver and co-pilot?
That is correct. 3-year-old is the opposite of the driver, and the 10-year-old is the opposite of the co-pilot. So if your co-pilot's a TI, your 10-year-old's FE. If your driver's NE, your 3-year-old's SI, right? So it's the opposite. Okay?
All right. Another one from Michael, New Zealand. Would internal arts be
Wait, hold on with Michael's for a second. Let me just draw something just to be clear to make this right, okay? In the car model, okay, this side and this side, well, let's just do that in a different color, okay? Are going to have the same either judging or perceiving, okay? If this side, the first letter is perceiving, this is perceiving. If it's judging, this is judging, okay? All right, so like NE means this is SI, okay? TI means this is FE, all right? Whatever, if it's judging, it stays on the same side, which means the other side is the other stuff, okay? So if this is TI and then this is, let's say, SE, then this would be NI, okay? Okay? I actually did that right. I just randomly threw the letters in so it worked. But you understand? Judging and perceiving, it's not like one is always judging and one is perceiving. Whatever your driver is, the other side of that piece of the equation. If the driver's judging, the 3-year-old is judging. Wow, that just took the whole thing away. Magic. Okay, there you go. Does that make sense now? Okay, explaining that? All right? So on the car grid, okay, whatever's here, the opposite one is here that corresponds. Here, the opposite one corresponds. So the opposite letter and the opposite polarity. So NE, SI, TE, FI, FE, TI, SI, NE, whatever, right? You got just opposite on the same side. Okay, good point. Now go to Michael's.
Would internal arts be a good term for this type of work?
I don't know. I'm a real hardline guy when it comes to labeling things, okay? So, look, it's just about dealing with finding the most effective way for you to deal with information. Gathering it, evaluating it, and then deciding where it's going, okay? It's how we make decisions. That's all it is. It's not necessarily an internal art because you know what? I could say the colors are. What drives you, okay? So all of this, I guess, would be internal arts because it's all about personal development. It's just a piece. It's just a piece of the puzzle. All right, next.
All right, another one from Michael. Can you break down INTJ, please, if time permits?
Sure. I think we've already done that a couple times. We could do it again. What color are we using? Blue. Okay, INTJ. All right, so how do we start? We start on this side. J means the judging side gets the E, which makes that an I, right? The driver is I, so it's NITEFISE. NITEFISE, right? Perceiving, judging, all right? I don't know what else they wanted as far as breaking it down, but that breaks it down. If you want the 4, what was it, INTJ? INTJ, balances with ENTP. Okay, so it's part of with what I've got, which means this is an ISFJ, and this is an ESFJ, right? ESFP. Okay, so it's the same 4 that I have. You're part of that group that I'm in, all right? Except that instead of these 2 being up here, they're reversed, okay? So your unconscious, okay, and your ego to your unconscious would be my ego to your unconscious, all right? Okay. So you're in the same quad. I don't know what to call them. I know there's one group that uses something called quadras. I'm not calling this quadras, but it's in one of those quads, those sets of 4 that are all in the same rotation, right? So those 4, if I was to do the ESFP, it would have the same 4. If I was to do the ISFJ, they'd have the same 4, all right? All right, next.
All right, this is from Carlos Correa, and this is the last one we have. Would you say that depending on the daily life situation, it may be needed for us to lean more on one or more of the functions that may not necessarily be your dominant one?
Oh, absolutely. That's why you need to balance them all, okay? I mean, depending on what's going on in a given moment, look, let's take me. I'm an ENTP. I dominate with an E, okay? What am I going to do with that? Like last night at dinner when I'm walking around saying hi to everybody? There's no NE in that. I'm trying to SE. I'm trying to be in the moment. I'm also trying to blue, okay? I'm doing some things that are required for the moment. So I go around and greet people and say hi and welcome them. That doesn't help my N at all. There's no intuition needed for that. There's really no logic or thinking needed for that. It's an SF type of thing, okay? So I needed to have emotion FE. I needed FE and I needed SE, okay, which are not in the same stack. But it needed SE and FE, okay? Actually, it would be SCTIFE. Yeah, it could be in the same stack, all right? So it needed that loop going on, all right? And so let's just kind of keep that in mind when, you say, well, depending on the situation, you might need to, learn to use one more of the, yes, absolutely. All right? You need to make a decision, and you need to make it quickly. You're going to have to get some of that J going and make some decisions more quickly, right? You can't just be gathering more and more information. You got to be able to pull the trigger and make a decision. Sometimes it's a big deal, and you have time, and it's better to slow down. Gather more information. So if your driver's not an N, you might need to slow down and use some of that, okay? Maybe you're too emotional about things. You need to slow down and think. Maybe you're not emotional about anything. You need to slow down and feel something, okay? So yes, Carlos, exactly correct. All right, next. That's it? Okay. That's a 519. Anybody else? We got two more up here. All right. And they're fighting over who's going next. Both of them showing FE.
Shalom.
No, you go first. No, you go first. No, you go first.
Okay.
All right.
I am ENTJ.
All right, you got to give me your first name again.
Jacqueline.
Jacqueline, okay.
ENTJ.
Okay.
And when you explained about the car, it made a lot of sense. So I deducted that my 3-year-old and my 10-year-old, I need to handle more through Yah, right?
You need to handle more what?
My 10-year-old and my 3-year-old, I need Yah to help me.
Well, no. I'm not like other ministries. I am really reluctant to think he has to do anything.
Well, can he just guide me to where I need to be?
No, I just guided you where you need to be. Now you got to do the work. Okay?
Where do I start?
The TE, right?
Yeah.
E gets the, right? The driver gets the BE. TENI, that's you, right?
Yes.
Okay. But I'm just saying is if you're struggling with these guys.
I am.
You need to win the struggle. He's not going to help you with that. It's your job. It's your battle. So you take an easy way out.
So I need to come to counseling so you can guide me to handle those two.
That would help. That's this part here. Using some NE to gather information. Okay?
Okay, according to my husband, I gather too much information in order to do something.
Okay, so then what you're wanting to do is abdicate this and have me do it for you.
Hey, I'm for that. Yeah, I can work with that.
Yeah. Okay? And he's not going to do that, neither am I. Okay? All right? Those of you that are too stuck in the NE and don't make decisions, you do often look for somebody else to do it. Okay? I'm one of the only ones out there that's teaching you from a ministerial point of view that most of what needs to happen, you need to do it. Stop looking for God to do it for you. Yah's not going to do this stuff for you. Okay? He's only going to do, again, I've said this so many times, he's only going to do what you cannot do, not what you won't do or don't want to do or unwilling to do, but what you can't do. And you can certainly whack that 10-year-old and 3-year-old into shape. Okay? You can wrestle them into behaving. All right, Monica.
Hi, Rabbi.
Got to put it right up to your mouth.
Hi, Rabbi. I'm so excited to be here. And I don't want to, I'm going to be talking about what you're talking about from my point of view, from what I see about the brain working.
Right.
Okay? Now, the brain has a lot of compartments. And one of them it will be the thinking, another one will be the judging, another one will be the feelings. We have two hemispheres, and we have the frontal lobe, and we have different parts of the brain.
Sure.
Now, all of them have to be working together. They have to be working together, so you will have that balance. And that's the key. The key to be in perfect balance is, yes, you have to do the work, you have to do the willing, but there's only two types of people. There's only the ones that they are the victims, and they say, okay, I can do anything because I am very low in my F or in my thinking, or the ones who are victorious. And the victorious, they are the ones that are going to work towards getting it, and that are going to get the balance because they are going to be working with the brain. The brain has to work together so it produces the balance you need.
Right.
So
right.
That's what I wanted to say.
Well, I appreciate it. Now, I wrote a name on the board. This guy, Dario Nardi, I think I got the name right. Okay, Dario has done a lot of studies on the brain and the types. And they've studied what an ENTP brain does under situation, what an IST, whatever, all the different ones. And so he has a book out there. I can't think of the name of it. I have the book. I got to think what the name of it is, on personality types. But he has it from the fact that he has studied, actually, they do brain scans, and they see what fires and what doesn't fire and how the patterns are in the brain. So you might find that fascinating.
I will, and I will get it. And I think that's fascinating because because when you connect all the brain and everything works together, like we used to be in the Garden of Eden, we used to have one brain, right? And we have a connection with God. And now, after so many years, 4,000 years of sin and whatever,
you only can talk with your left hand.
Well, but we are now, after so many years, we're disconnected. We are disconnected, and we have to connect again the brain to have it. So I'm going to write. Do you know the name of the book?
I do. I just don't remember it off the top of my head, so I'd have to go see what I have in my desk. So ask me later.
I would love to have it.
If I remember, I'll mention it to everybody tomorrow in the Level Up classes, okay? But that's the guy who wrote the book. What was that? No, he has a lot of books, but again, it has to do with the personalities. Actually, in it, he's got the subcategories for each personality. What was it? Oh, decode your personality. Was that it?
Decoded.
That's one. I don't know. I don't know if it's neuroscience or decode. Probably decode. But anyway, I'll get the book. I have it at home. Okay. So typical red and E. I gathered lots of books. Do you think I sat down and read them all? I think it's like the gym. If I have a membership, it works. I don't know. I don't feel like I have to go or read the book or any of that stuff. Osmosis. I should put it under my pillow, and something like that. But then I don't use a pillow, so that's not going to work. Anyway. But at least I gave you the name, okay? Because Monica was asking about specifically how the brain fires differently, and so they actually put people through a scan who had certain personality types to see how their brain fires under certain situations and everything. So you could see that there's a actual very obvious difference in the way, say, an ENTP and ISFJ respond to certain things, right? So different parts are more active or less active in the brain under certain situations based on the personality types. It's really interesting. All right.
Eddie,
thank you.
Eddie, it's okay. And I will preface this by saying I was in with the Torah Study this morning, so I'm going to be having to watch this several times.
Don't worry about it. People that were here are still going to have to watch it several times.
Post-stroke, the number, when you're doing these squares and numbers, I'm having trouble keeping up, so I'm going to have to watch it. But I am ESFP is what I tested out as. I feel like the 3-year-old's always driving. I think that's what my wife gets frustrated with sometimes, because it just feels like the 3-year-old. If that's not the 3-year-old, then sometimes the 10-year-old is driving.
All right. So ESFP has NI as the 3-year-old and has TE as the 10-year-old. You are part of the same quad as me, okay? Which is the ENTP, ENFP, ESFP, and ESTP. All right. I'm sorry. You're not part of the same. You're part of a. No, I got it wrong. All right. So you're ESFP. Is that what you said?
ESFP.
All right. Let me pull you up here. ESFP. There it is. All right. So you're in the quad with the INTJ, ISFJ, and you are in my quad. You are in my quad. That's right. Okay. Good.
But I don't.
You don't know what that means. It doesn't matter.
What that means. Okay, it doesn't matter right now. I'll let the 3-year-old keep driving. My wife can keep us on track. Thank you.
All right, remember, but your 3-year-old is the one that takes all kinds of information, tries to connect them together to come up with some sort of simple, singular sort of point or conclusion, right? That's what NI does, okay? But I know a lot of you, that's why we record this stuff. It's great. A lot of you are going to have to go back and re-listen and re-listen and re-listen, because there's a lot of information here, okay? And so I don't know if we can kind of hold this up so the camera can see it a little bit. But, all right, there. Okay, so that's what a typical page looks like. So you can see the 4 cars, and then you can see also the ego, subconscious, you see all that on there, right? So there's one page for each of the 16 personalities, all right? All right, I don't know if I have enough for everybody. Please just take one per family, and we'll see if we got enough to do that. I'll put them out on the back table. Also, at the end of this here, we will have your shirts are ready. And Marlene and team will be down here with your shirts at the end of this. Actually, they could probably come. Are you here now, ready with the shirts? Okay, so as soon as we end, you can go to the back and pick up your pre-ordered shirts. So those are available. All right, any last questions, comments, thoughts, or anything else we need to cover? All right, was that good? Did you enjoy that? All right, now that I fried your brain, tomorrow we're going to do 4 level up classes. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and close with that. Blessings to everyone. We'll see you tomorrow morning with Level Up Part 1.